coming to you from the all-new Live House in Hollywood, California.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. I bet you didn't know how much Netflix has a commitment to audio. We've got two execs here who are going to explain it to you. It's pretty fascinating. But first, keep in mind, Sweetwater Gear Fest coming just a couple of weeks out, June 21st and 22nd. It's held on the amazing Sweetwater campus in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I call it Audio Lollapalooza. Producers, artists, engineers, gear, workshops, and so much more. Dave and I will be doing a Pensado's Place live version on Saturday the 22nd, 3:30 p.m. in Conference Hall 1. Would recommend you get there early, get a good seat. We got a bunch of info you can use. Some of our friends are stopping by. Cool stuff to give away, a chance to answer your questions and to meet you personally. Thank you for your support. All this is free, so come on, we want to meet you and absolutely hang out. Then 1 month later, get your calendars out for Summer NAMM, July 18th through July 20th. It's held at the Music Center in good old Nashville, Tennessee. Our good friends at NAMM have made it possible for the Pensado audience to get in free. Go to this link you see right below me, register at the top of the page. Put in Pensado as your code, and voila, you are golden. Dave and I will interview a very special guest on the 20th at 1 p.m. So again, use your code, get in for free, get your seat early, come and hang out with you. We look forward to that. We can notify you of all this stuff if you sign up for our newsletter, like and subscribe, and click notify right here. So we thank you for that as always. And now to our guest. You've heard of the word Netflix, the absolute streaming behemoth that has changed the game. What you may not know is that they have a huge commitment to audio. And here to discuss it are two of their executives, Ozzie Sutherland and Scott Kramer. Welcome to the place. Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Scott.
What's up, Scott? What's going on?
So we got a New Yorker and a California boy, and you're together in this incredible behemoth called Netflix, doing the audio and other thing, correct?
We're doing plenty, I think.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot.
Yeah, we're doing a lot over there.
Just for context, how much content does Netflix put out in a year?
We said about 800 titles, and that could be a series or a feature or a documentary, comedy special.
And all of those have areas that you have to have interest in terms of audio and quality and standards delivered and all that stuff?
Absolutely, because the content's king, and we want to give the best experience to our viewers out there. So we definitely take pride in the audio quality.
The department what's your department called, and what all are kind of the obligations of that department?
Creative technologies and infrastructure. And so we're kind of the CTI, yeah. We're like the technical tip of the spear for the studio. So we research new technologies and emerging technologies and kind of give the studio a little direction on where to go, and then educate people internally on how we use different technologies, picture and sound technologies.
Does this transcend the audio space into everything?
Yeah, so it's everything technology for content production, for making the shows and the films. So we have to have an expert in color science, which is how you color time the show, in editorial, offline, and online editorial, which is whether you're full resolution or not. And then we have a camera expert who knows the Red camera, the Sony Venice, all those different cameras out there, the F55, all of them. And then we have someone who understands multicam production, so doing a comedy special or a different type of shoot where you've got 3 cameras and you're switching between them and doing all that. And then we have single camera experts. We have managers who kind of put together teams, and then infrastructure is a big part of it. So we're building screening rooms and review rooms around the world in all the different Netflix offices where the people who are actually doing the deals to get the shows and movies made will want to review what it is, to watch the final sound mix or to watch the final picture and kind of sign off on it before it goes on the service.
Do you guys get involved in that process in terms of delivery commitments, making sure it's making marks or hitting the standards that you have? Is that your department, or is that showrunners, or?
On one side of it, for the infrastructure side, I get quite involved on that side since I've been at Netflix, because I'm helping to spec out the screening rooms and the audio aspects of them to make sure it's the highest quality for our execs or anybody to come in for a screening and hear back the material mixed from the stage so they can check it out and get that full experience that you would if you were headed to a dub stage, but you can come into a screening environment and feel that there.
Got it.
As far as like, you know, creative, you're saying on creative exec side.
Yeah, because obviously at some point in time it's going out to the consumer and somebody's got to sign off on that.
That's still up to the show at the end of the day. You know, it's up to the show signing off on that, and it's up to the creative execs within Netflix working with them to sign off on that.
Got it.
I read somewhere where 80% of the growth in Netflix audience is coming from overseas, non-English speaking countries. Is that something that you guys deal with? Because you got to translate and put subtitles. I mean, how many countries are you in? I mean,
we're growing quite rapidly right now.
Yeah, I think it's 190 countries is what they say, and it's there's two main departments that are responsible for that. There's globalization. And they do subtitles in more languages than I can count. A lot of languages, they would know the exact number. And then there's international dubbing, which we work really closely with. They're just one floor up from us at the building in LA. And that's a big group of people who does the dubs in different languages. So for most of the shows or films, we're talking 8 to 9 languages of recorded in different spoken languages.
Per film.
For films and shows. But for children's programming, it's up to 24 different languages actually spoken because kids can't read.
Right.
So you can't subtitle it for kids. So we have recording studios all over the world that are recording the different language assets. And the reason we always do it in country is you get better actors and a richer talent pool of people who can speak the language and act very well and do it. And then a lot of it mixes in country, or it comes back here to mix. Some of it comes back here to mix. There's a little bit of everything going on to get all that done, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, a lot of audio, and a lot of mixing happening for that.
Yeah, so there's a lot behind the scenes that happens, you know, after a mix or during the mix, actually, because you're mixing a show or a film, and as that show's finishing, if it's an episodic, if it's 10 episodes or something, by the time you finish episode 1, they've got to start getting that into the international realm so they can start dubbing in the different languages.
And dealing with timing and meeting deadlines. And that pressure's got to be 800 titles, Mike.
And we don't trickle it out, you know, we put it out on the day.
Yeah, when it's ready to go.
Yeah.
The higher quality initiative that was been launched recently, right? Which I've had the pleasure, thanks to Ozzie, of coming up and hearing some of. Scott, you're kind of the godfather, the body.
I wouldn't say that.
And
I'm going to say you're the godfather. You're the godfather of higher quality audio.
But explain it and the process, and because it's meticulous and makes a big difference, correct?
Yeah. I mean, really, this is about a guy who was a few months into the job, and I was real green and new to Netflix, new to a corporate environment. I was a freelance mixer and editor before that.
In
post-production,
Got it.
And then I'm coming to Netflix, and one day I get a call on my phone. I need to come up to this room in one of the upper floors. Yeah, it's that call, you know, that a lot of us have gotten.
The principal's office.
Yeah. And I enter the room, and there are the Duffer Brothers, who are the creators of Stranger Things, which was one of our bigger hit shows, and they're post-production executive, and they're unhappy with the sound, the way their show sounds on Netflix. And we're looking at it before the launch of this season 2. And we listened to it several times. We went downstairs and listened to it some more, and I didn't think there was anything wrong at first. And then when we went to the other room, which was more of a reference room with Genelec speakers and the whole deal, I said, you know, something is wrong here. And for the next week or so, it was about figuring out what that was. And a lot of it was related to the way the stereo mix was done. Because when we fold down from 5.1 to stereo, there's an automatic kind of way we do that usually, and it was done incorrectly. So that was a lot of the problem. The stereo sounded different from the surround version. We fixed that with the place it was mixed at, the vendor. But then we were listening to the show so carefully with the mixers who did it, with the creators, that we realized that we weren't streaming at the audio quality level we could be, that we had some room for improvement. So we put together a team of engineers who, and you know, we have this headquarters in Los Gatos in Northern California, and the engineers who build the product, the streaming product, they love fixing problems. This is what computer designers and programmers like to
Netflix
do.
Netflix is a tech company.
Yeah, it's a tech company and the studio. It's these two aspects. Right. And so it was my introduction to these geniuses up there was this problem, and how do we fix this? And they were all for it. They wanted to do it. And I was nervous that they wouldn't back me up, but it worked out. And they started on it. It took about a year to do. We met every Friday around lunch, and we talked it through. And just watching them work was amazing. Watching them manage a team of engineers and the kind of minds they bring together, amazing. The first aspect of upgrading the audio quality was figuring out what bit rates are we going to go with. So we have to take the huge master file, compress it. We do that first. Every service does that. How are we going to find higher bit rates? And then how are we going to work when you don't have as much internet bandwidth? How are we going to adaptively change the bit rate? So this is kind of the breakthrough that we worked on, was figuring out how to upgrade the 5.1, the surround quality, but also be able to shift from a lower bit rate to a higher bit rate as your internet connection improves, or up or down from a big bit rate to a smaller one. And the whole time through it, my kind of goal was, I want to be able to say that at least one of our audio streams is perceptually transparent. Okay. What that means, that's a kind of a technical listening term that means you can't audibly hear the difference between the master recording and the compressed stream. That was my goal. And it's still a lossy codec. You're still losing some of that information, but you're coding everything that you can hear. Everything you can hear is going down the pipe. And we did that for 5.1 Dolby Digital Plus, and we upgraded Atmos as well. So this was kind of, we were in a good stopping place and a good place to announce that we launched it, but we're going to keep working on it and upgrade all of the audio streams.
Is this what I see sometimes when I'm watching Netflix, where the quality will go down a little bit and then a few seconds later it'll come back up? Is it hunting for that optimum quality?
Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah,
and because we have to deal with internet speeds in the real world, and internet conditions all over the world are very different. Some people are even watching on phones,
I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Streaming over that.
You have to be aware of what they're listening on, what device, right?
Yeah, so the video was doing that for many years. They developed that very early on, almost 10 years ago. And so the video quality has been very adaptable. Audio was fixed bit rates. Now it's adaptable.
What is
just
the
like
bit rate
video
for audio?
It goes up to 640 kilobit for Dolby Digital Plus.
Does that translate to like MP3 numbers, like 320?
It's not the same as MP3. It's Dolby Digital Plus is probably a little bit less than AAC. Okay. Better than MP3, less than AAC, and then we have an AAC stereo stream. So it's every codec's different, and that was the level where we had data showing that was transparent. Cool. 640.
Have you seen a recognition by showrunners or content providers that audio is critical to their process? Has that raised? Like they don't dismiss it.
Oh no, we have. Creators within Netflix and showrunners who they believe highly in the best quality audio because they know we have such a high standard on it, that they want the best possible audio crew working on their shows, because it's to protect the creative intent.
Exactly.
Right? So creative intent is everything for these showrunners, these execs who work on this and put their heart and soul into this. And, at the end of the day, they want it to sound like what they heard on the stage and get everyone at home feeling the same way about that show or film.
Because the breadth of the titles must mean there's every audio possibility. Live audiences, music, on location, natural sound, stage. It's got to be everything, right? And so if you're not astute about it, you have to have a certain amount of expertise around it just to capture, let alone get into the mix. Yeah. Right, that's a whole other thing.
So capture actually is something, since I came onto Netflix with Scott, it's been an initiative for both of us to try to, see the best possible way we can help them out there to get a better capture. Like, so the highest quality audio captured on the day for, say, a concert event or a comedy special, and just seeing how we can push that to the next level to see what kind of audio capture we can do. Can we do immersive capture in those spaces? Because we have a lot of Dolby Atmos titles on Netflix, and we've even seen in like the comedy vertical for one at Netflix that immersive audio really helps with the comedy special. You know, having the capture of the crowd. You know, as a joke travels through a crowd and you feel that, and you're sitting there experiencing it in Atmos at home, makes a big difference.
Makes a huge difference.
So I think it's an important thing to capture audio the best you can, but then also in post really focus on it and make it the best, highest quality you can.
Do you have the same horrible problem I have in my world, and that's the LUFS standard? Like, are you limited to trying? First of all, do you adhere to the LUFS standard? So every broadcast piece of audio needs to be the same level, and there can't be one show louder than another. Like on streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music, if I have a loud mix, they bring it down automatically. If I got a soft mix, they bring it up. So everything on the platform is the same level. Are you guys a slave to that too?
Yeah, in broadcast there are real serious standards for levels, but with a lot more dynamic range than in music. On those services.
Is it an LUFS scale?
Yeah, and broadcast is generally around -24, -23, -24. Last year, we switched to measuring just the dialogue. So we're taking in the full print master, the mix of everything, dialogue, music, and effects, but we're only honing in on the dialogue.
That's interesting.
And the reason we did that is people at home, when you turn on a show, within the first few 30 seconds of the show, you pick up your remote and you set the level based on the dialogue where you can comfortably hear the dialogue. Then if it gets real loud, you might turn it down, but you're going to turn it back up to the dialogue. So we call that the anchor element. And there is a standard called ATSC that speaks to this. And what we decided, and we're not the only ones, NBC Universal does it, HBO and CBS, was that we measured our content library and we saw the dialogue was around -27. So we picked -27. And then about a month later, Disney Home Entertainment went with a similar standard, -27 dialogue gated. Which is cool because once you get the dialogue in the pocket, and that's where you want it, you can mix the effects and music all around that, and we're not looking at those, so we're not enforcing those levels.
So, but the anchor elements where you're focusing.
Yeah, just the dialogue.
Got it.
Yeah.
Dolby Atmos is important to Netflix, right? I mean, you guys, because so much stuff is outsourced, correct?
Correct.
And so
we don't mix any audio at Netflix Studios or anything.
Right.
Yeah, so it's all done with the creatives. They have their creative freedom and choice to go wherever they want.
So the right kind of Dolby Atmos room is important to Netflix if you have it or can create it or whatever the case may be, or potentially to showrunners and stuff that work on Netflix stuff.
Well, we do recommend that, and it's in our specs and everything out there that, you mix in a 714 room. It's important to us to have at least a minimum of that. Size of the room, that's it's a bit of a gray area. You don't want to really tell people the size of their room or how you want to design your room.
Right.
I mean, but that's the minimum speaker requirement or monitoring requirement. Size can be a large living room. I mean, could be a Michael Bay living room or my living room maybe at home. I don't know. Nobody knows the size of my living room, but it can be around a large living room. But, and if you think about it, it's like 20 by 30, 30 by 40 kind of size room is probably like the biggest, you would say, even for like sometimes a Netflix film, depending. But, we've even, I think we've run into some things where they've mixed in a very big room, and then the translation of that to the audience at home can be very difficult, especially when it comes time to get everything correct and delivered for us. So building the right room and the right size room, I think, is important. We have our let me just.
There's a sound mix specifications and best practices document.
Yes.
So you can find that online.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And that will tell people what's required in order to
and I think the philosophy comes from the top, and it's about freedom and and being able to work however you want to work. So we try to have as few rules and requirements as possible. But then what we're doing is a lot of recommendations. And that's what we're talking about when we say room size or 916 or 714 is like, if the director wants to work at a particular studio, they should go there, and they go there, and the studio does not have a say in that. But we do have recommendations for mixers who are curious and people who want to know.
Which I'm sure is a lot of our folks.
What's the future of streaming? I mean, it's where do we go next? Is it 5K? I mean, do we the immersive stuff is kind of growing and growing. Is that going to take over and morph into AR? Where is the streaming? And now there's a lot more players in the game than there used to be last year.
There's a lot out there. I think one thing we've been looking at together is, the future of streaming at home and seeing how the higher quality audio and everything will translate to the home environments. And one area where we've been looking at quite strongly is with soundbar technology and seeing these immersive soundbars that are coming out. Because when you think about it, Netflix being a global company, in Asia, in India, all these places, and if you go to those countries and you see somebody's home, they can't have 12 speakers in their house. People will, we already have enough trouble trying to get 6 speakers in the house. So with soundbars, that can bring a whole different experience, mounting your TV on the wall, having a soundbar in front of it, using all of the technology built into these things to calculate your room and give you an immersive experience at home. I think that's where it's really exciting to see that. And, I know Scott's been looking a lot into just headphone experience too, and how that can be a more immersive experience for people, because you walk down the street, you see a lot of people on their phone watching a show, or you're out to dinner and you see people just there, their kids got headphones on and they're watching an iPad. And so that's kind of, I think, a big area for us to explore.
Do you think you guys will ever do anything live, like broadcast a live? When you get this quality audio, it'd be a shame not to do a concert, but you're kind of anti-live stuff, aren't you?
We have some filmed concerts. There's a Taylor Swift and a Beyonce.
I mean, actual live.
Yeah, but as far as live, I haven't heard anything about it or any plan to go into that. Yeah.
There's something special about seeing John Mayer,
The MP3 program, explain what that is and how that's good for the viewers is that your partnership program?
NP3 is, how do we describe it?
It's the post-partnership program. Right. It's an optional program. It's basically a list you can get on of studios that have been onboarded to work with Netflix. And it's not a gatekeeping thing where if you're not on the list, you can't work with Netflix. Again, the most important thing to getting Netflix work is having relationships with the producers who are putting together the shows, and they don't work for Netflix. They work for the shows that we greenlight them and give them the money, and then they make the show. But the post-partner program allows you to get onto the Netflix list of facilities that are, can deliver to our standards.
So if somebody was interested out there, the standards are in there. Kind of what you expect. From security to delivery to what you need in house,
Yep. And I mean, you would contact somebody within the MP3 program, depending on the region that you're in, and they would figure out an onboarding process for you, come to your facility, bring whoever they have to bring, security, whatever teams, and figure out where you stand within that.
Got it. Are there different levels that you
There
can
are
be?
3 levels.
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I would say, again, it may not be the difference between getting work for Netflix or not. Probably doesn't make a difference there. But I when people ask me about it, I say, if you can get on the list, why not? Why not go through it? Yeah.
And this would obviously be global.
Yes.
Too. Yeah. Got it. So all of us who do whatever we do for a living experience war stories or things that come up or emergency situations in the Netflix world with that much content coming out, with that much work going on. Any war stories that you can have experienced?
Well,
in your 10 months?
luckily I haven't had too many crazy war stories yet at Netflix, but I've had one where, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I've been called in to listen to a mix and had a creative exec at Netflix in my face, look at me and tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's wrong. Kind of just like Scott had his moment, and I'm like, you really want me to tell you this? And they're like, yes, we hired you for this reason. Like, tell us what's wrong. And I'm like, okay. And then I just unloaded on what's wrong, and then it in turn turned into them moving a mix to a better crew and everything like that. But it's like you just have that moment where you're there and you're like, well, they're all looking at me and they want me to tell them I got to deliver, and you just have to do it.
And what you're delivering can oftentimes mean much more expenditure.
Right. And that's went through my head immediately when that happened. I was like, if I say what I'm going to say,
this is going to cost
some money.
A whole bunch of money.
But okay, I guess but that's the freedom that we have at Netflix, and that's why it's such a great place for, us to be at, because we do have that freedom, and they do really value everyone's opinion, and we're specialists in the best in our game, and they value what we say, and it really makes it a better environment to work in. And they're putting their self on the line with this, and they trust our opinion on this, and
they're probably counting on it.
They're counting on it. Yeah. So at the same time, it's it's a lot of pressure, and it's concerning. It's gratifying at the end of it.
Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, you will get in those situations where there's a famous person or somebody who is a big name or very powerful, and you're in front of them, and the first thing, and this goes back before my time at Netflix, I learned is to just be honest. And if there's a real problem, even if there's going to be consequences, you say it. And if there isn't, you say that. And I'm not good at lying or politics or any of that. So I just go out with it, and it'll be what it'll be. But I've noticed that people who are very famous or powerful, they tend to really respect that, because they don't always get that from their handlers and all that. So just being someone who they can confide in is a good way to be,
I think even early on in my career too, I felt the same way. Like, and I think I learned that from a couple of engineers when I was dealing with music and other things. They just said to me, just be honest. Don't try to hide something, because at the end of the day, they're going to find out anyway.
Absolutely.
Somebody's going to find out.
And
so why
you're gonna be held responsible?
Exactly. Yeah. Why create a trail behind you of BS and lies that aren't going to lead to anything? So I think both of us are pretty brutally honest, and I think the Netflix culture can also be very brutally honest with each other, which is, for us, it's fantastic. But for not everybody, that's not what they like. Not everybody can deal with that.
When you think about our audience, one of the things, like particularly when we're giving talks and stuff, we talk about how inclusive audio is. Like, I always talk about audio is the only discipline that's in everything. There's no place in the world that's silent. There's audio everywhere, right? And so if you're coming up and you're in school or you're trying to make a decision, talk about audio in post. Is that a field that is growth-based? Can people make money? Is it interesting? Is it stimulating? Give us your takes.
If I wasn't in Netflix, I think I'd be doing that. We'd still be doing post audio for sure. I mean, look, when I started out in the business, I was an intern at Chungking, and you ran around, got people's lunch, and did everything else and all that good stuff. And then it took 3 engineers turning to me and telling me, hey, you might want to take a look at post-production. I had no idea at that point. And I knew I loved lightsabers and other things in movies and loved the sound of stuff. But I was like, okay, how do what is post-production exactly? And then I got into it through the school. I went to SAU in New York and then went back and said, hey, is there any post studios available? They said, yeah, there's one here, Tonic in New York. And I was like, what is this? And went in, assistant engineer for a long time, mixed tech there. But then you start learning all the different aspects of it, recording VOs, recording ADR, doing sound design, cutting together music. So it's a combination of everything that comes together in post. But there's so many different aspects of audio within post, from capturing it to the Foley, to ADR, to mixing, to pre-mixing, to the music scoring, or being a composer. So you can branch into everything when it comes to post. And at the end of the day, content's king. Everybody wants more and more content. So there is jobs out there if you're young and upcoming into this world, of audio, there's plenty out there to do. Just don't. My best advice would be not to pigeonhole yourself into just one thing, you know, and just say that's what I do, and that's the only thing I do.
Is that your take, Scott?
Yeah. I mean, I realized early on in college that I could geek out on the sound of a conceptual sound design sequence as much as I could a guitar tone or something like that. So, and I liked the complexity of post-production. And I met some filmmakers and realized that this is a collaboration with people who they're not passionate about sound the same way that I am, but they're passionate about their own different disciplines, whether it's like cinematography or directing.
Yeah.
So it's this huge team that comes together and collaborates to make this one thing. And then you get to be in charge of the sound. And they needed that when I was in college, and I was making a living at it right away. So I knew there were a lot of possibilities there. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest impediments a classic mix engineer like myself would face transitioning over to becoming a mix engineer in the post space? What are 2 or 3 impediments?
You're Dave Pensado, man. You shouldn't have an issue.
Well, somebody reminded me that it took really intelligent people to go into that world.
You're pretty damn intelligent.
What things would they look for first in order to kind of make it an easy transition?
Clean is good. That's one thing that you learn in post right away.
In what sense?
Clean tone, clean sound, not affecting the sound with distortion or with coloration is very important in post-production.
Because at that point in post, most of the time, that's up to sound designers and sound editors to make you the sounds that you're going to mix. And they could distort them, they can do things to them, but like Scott says here, clean is definitely... Clean is good.
Yeah.
Clean sound.
All the different delivery methods once you finish the mix, that's kind of tough too to learn, isn't it?
It takes time. There's a lot that goes into it. A lot of different tracks. Organization is a big part of it. How your tracks are laid out. You might have hundreds of tracks in a film session, and then you might pre-mix them in different groups. So just do the dialogue, then just do the sound effects, just do backgrounds, the ambiances and things like that, and then bring them all together in the mix. And when you're mixing a film or show, you might only have 8 faders with your main food groups on them, your dialogue, music effects, and then you break it out into the individual elements that make those up.
Interesting.
But there is a lot that goes into it. And then the final delivery formats, you're re-recording. They call it a re-recording mixer because you're taking these recordings and then you're mixing them and re-recording them into stems, which then get re-recorded again into your 5.1 or your stereo master or your Atmos master. So it's kind of like a cascade of recordings happening.
I see pictures all the time of like these massive consoles with 3 engineers at the console. What part of the process is that?
That's the final mix usually. Yeah, that's usually a final mix. If you see 2 or 3 engineers, I mean, it's mostly 2 these days.
Okay.
One guy will handle dialogue and music, and the other guy is handling effects in most cases. And that's usually the final mix.
Okay.
The guys who pre-mix and pre-dub, those final elements that they're getting at that point, they don't get that limelight in the picture.
Is the money good for post, folks? Well, you've been on both sides.
I've been on both sides.
What would you
I will honestly say I prefer post paychecks than music paychecks for sure. I think it's a different beast compared to music.
Yeah.
But
Sorry. I was going to say some things are the same. Like freelancing is the same. Hustling is the same thing that you got to do no matter which business. Pleasing the client services, that stuff is the same thing.
You have to be in a union?
There are unions. You don't have to. There's non-union work and there's union work.
Okay.
The better work is union work.
Okay.
But some things are the same, and generally it's a little bit more of a steady gig, I would think.
Are
definitely more steady.
Music?
Let's speak U.S. Are the cities for post the same as the big cities for music, or are they different? Is it L.A. and New York and not others? Or?
I don't think there's necessarily a massive. I mean, LA is LA in the sense of like it's the community and everything's out here. But there's people doing post in Seattle and in different parts of Canada, all throughout the US, Florida, different places have post facilities all over the place.
Gotcha.
So it's not just central to just being New York, LA.
Right. So those places don't necessarily have to be near where the creators are. You could send your stuff to somebody to do post.
If a director or creative exec wants to use whatever facility anywhere, it's up to them as long as they want to handle that.
Got it. So all you guys have opportunity. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to move to LA. Got to hit some standards and got to know some people and then prove your worth. Correct?
Yeah, I think it's just it's the relationships at that point. You know, building their clientele up and who they know, and building it off of that. And then, because I mean, there's facilities all across the world. There's facilities everywhere that are doing work for our shows right now.
I got a question that shows my ignorance, but I'll ask it anyway. Why stop now? How has the rise of software like Final Cut Pro, some of the more semi-pro pieces of software, how has that influenced the industry? Like, is it similar to the way in my industry where you've got Pro Tools, you got FL, you got Live, and that altered our industry in a major way. Did Final Cut Pro alter your industry in a major way, and is that still happening? In other words, a guy can work at a smaller facility, somewhat a garage facility, and still do a major movie, right?
Digital completely changed the game for post-production. It used to be big crews stringing up mag film on dubbers in big long rows, because a lot of it was just physical work, and it was hot in those rooms, and there was a lot of people just setting up the dubbers. So digital completely changed it, but from software to software, I wouldn't say those have had too much of an effect. Avid and Final Cut are big for editorial, for picture editorial. Pro Tools is pretty much the main one for sound and sound mixing and editorial. But it was really the transition to digital, which was happening right when I started in 2002. That was really a big bolt of lightning, you know.
But you do see, I mean, between Adobe, Final Cut, Media Composer, you know, Avid Media Composer, those are the tools for the editorial side, and Pro Tools is still the main axe for everybody cutting sound.
That's good to know.
Yeah. There is life.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying that, you know, when you see the dollars being spent on content, the size of the companies that are dealing with streaming now, you guys know who your competition is. I think a lot of people are reactive to Netflix's success, frankly. You see Disney make this move, and Amazon and Hulu and all these different people. Not just because of Netflix, but because that's where there's opportunity and growth and subscribers and all that kind of stuff. So audio is going to accompany every bit of content that's going to come from all those places.
And the other aspect of the audio side for that is, you know, from a composer standpoint, you see composers using Cubase, Logic, Ableton, whatever tools they're using to get it done, and at the end of the day, they're still mixing in Pro Tools or something like that, and then they're getting that all delivered to a stage, and they're mixing that into the show. So, you know, there is workflow no matter what through all the different tools, but I think some of them had helped make it easier for those out there to create.
Does VR and or AR present unique audio challenges or no? If that kind of content is in something?
That doesn't really enter into it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are thinking about immersive audio, but it's for linear, like TV shows, movies.
Got it.
We're not, we don't consider that to be part of the market, VR and AR. Yeah. The ambisonics and 360 audio is really interesting. There's a lot of cool tools out there.
Right.
We have the Sennheiser Ambio mic back at the shop, and we experiment with it, but it isn't really part of our workflow.
Got it.
Right now.
Do you see it coming or no? I never can tell. I can't tell if...
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the right answer.
It's, I mean, gaming world, it's there. You know, there's a lot of stuff there, but you never know. But you never know. It could become something. We could get that one filmmaker who says, that takes Scott into a room again and says, "Hey, man, Scott, come upstairs, and we need to do this." You know, that can happen. So we have to, as our team, the CTI team at Netflix, we always have to stay on our toes and be up on all the tech that's out there and just keep our eyes open and see what it is. And you never know, we might be approached about something like that. So our eyes are open to it, but it's not like in the day-to-day conversation, we have to do that.
Give us a real life snapshot. So take an episodic series. What is, what is the delivery timeline? What happens from capture to getting it mixed to, like, an episodic series is how many weeks?
Yeah, it's hard to generalize. A shoot
is very different.
Yeah, a shoot for a film is generally like, I'd say like 16 days to maybe several months of days, shoot days. So a series I would think would be a couple months at the minimum to do all
for
that.
the whole series.
All that content. And then they would shoot it all at once.
Yeah,
and then they go into, then I think they'll have editors on the set a lot, and they'll start cutting right away. Or they'll do dailies, which is where you take the footage from each day, take a look at it, and
see what you got.
Yeah, and see what you got.
Yep.
And then it'll enter, I would say VFX, editorial, and post sound happen all kind of simultaneously. Post sound will trail on editorial a little bit. And VFX is kind of continuously through the whole post process. And then it all kind of comes together.
At the end.
At the end, yeah.
And that's when the creative execs would get the delivery stuff and sign off or not. Correct.
Or just rubber stamp it and say, this is the director's vision, so we're good with it.
This is where it is, yeah.
That's incredible. Hats off to the company for doing that. I wish that was in our business.
No, it's a hell of a process, and it's amazing to watch a show go from start to finish. And you do, the one thing you do see a lot of is these days, at least because everything's so digital, VFX will always be trailing at the end for sure if they're trying to get that last little shot in there or something. And then post sound gets a little upset at the end. They're like, got to go back in and just make sure everything is perfect. And then they get that last VFX shot, and then they feel good about themselves then, But that's a lot of what you'll see happen.
And higher quality audio is now the law of the land, or
it's our standard.
It's your standard.
Is we want to be perceptually lossless, perceptually transparent with the sound as much as we can. We're going to keep working on upgrading the sound quality, and that's both I like to say it's from the microphone on the set all the way to the speaker in the member's home.
Gotcha.
And we want to make sure we're paying attention to the whole pipe
and continue to evolve that standard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's one thing at tech companies; it never stops. You always need to innovate. You always need to invent.
Listen, I've come
things.
over to 3 or 4 meetings with you, right, at Netflix. And it seems like every time I'm there, something has evolved. Something is different.
The building evolves itself. It's like it's an own entity.
Being built it is.
No, it's wild, man. It's been a wild ride for me coming over to Netflix and joining Scott and everybody on the team, and just seeing the growth and the explosion of growth that happens in the company. You can feel it
when you're in the building.
It's infectious, As soon as you walk into our building, it's infectious. Like, everyone who comes by, like yourself, for a meeting, they're like, I got extra energy today.
Yeah,
it's like, you do? It's like, great.
It's so stimulative. I mean, it's really amazing.
Yeah.
It is truly amazing. How do you, with all that content, you guys don't have to see it all. There's no way you can.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. We have to sit there and watch all of it.
Every bit of it.
No.
That's spread out. That's spread out over a lot of different folks, or a QC group of people.
Well, QC, that's a whole thing unto itself.
Is it really?
Yeah. I mean,
there's a whole department for that.
Really?
Yeah, an entire QC department.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're managing, just like the content creation is distributed to the different shows. They all set up a little company and make the show or the film. The QC, we have a vendor network, and we have a localization network of vendors. So we, again, are just commissioning the QC work to be done, commissioning the localization work to be done. So Netflix indirectly is funding a lot of studios and QC houses all around the world who are doing a lot of this work.
Pay attention to what you say.
So you could be working for a company that's doing work for Netflix because we don't do a lot of it in-house. And that's a pretty cool thing, is all those companies run themselves however they would want.
Well, that's one of the things that when we started talking about what we've been talking about in October, November of last year, it was amazing to me how much this behemoth actually outsources to different folks to do, but those folks have to meet the standard necessary to be able to do it. And between relationships with these people and also doing the work well, that if you could fulfill that, there was opportunity there. That seemed to me, particularly coming from the music side, if you can get to that, more consistent than the ebb and flow of music, because you had so many big companies who need to do that kind of thing that are streaming an unbelievable amount of content over and over and over. You know, take Netflix, multiplied by 5 or 6 companies. That's a lot.
That's a lot of content.
It's a lot of content and a lot of work going to high-end artisans who meet the standard, and that's a pretty good business.
And we need QC.
Yeah,
you know, it's an imperative piece of the whole process.
Not stopping.
It's not stopping.
God, yeah, amazing. What else can you wow us with?
I can't tell you anything about Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. All right. We wanted some spoilers.
You want some spoilers? I don't know anything.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
He knows, doesn't he, Scott?
No, we don't know. No, I mean, I think the thing to look forward to, I think, is a lot of our international content that'll be happening this year. It's a big piece of the Netflix brand and everything. I would stay tuned to India, stay tuned to Japan, stay tuned to all these different countries, because that's one of the things I think that excites me the most, is being able to watch a show that I never thought I'd be able to watch, or from a filmmaker I never knew about. And it's like, wow, this is great. You know, this is amazing. This show is awesome. You know, and I think that's a great piece of Netflix, is that it's so international. I mean, there's shows from Brazil, shows from Japan, shows from all over the world, England, everywhere, you know, and Spain, wherever. And you can enjoy that content and figure out what works for you. And I think that's a great experience.
More film or more TV?
I think the mix is more series, but film has been very successful. So we've made some big bets on movies, and they've paid off. So it's gonna
Oscars last year.
Yeah, the film, not just the
Roma was not bad.
Not bad.
Not just the original studio films, but indie films that are lower budget and all of that. Documentary films, all of that.
Yeah. So. Speaking of documentaries, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention The Black Godfather. That's coming out while you guys are watching this.
Yep, it'll be out this week. And it's the
amazing Hollywood
Clarence Avon story. It's pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much great content coming. I mean, everybody just has to stay tuned. And exactly 1 month to the day, everyone can get watching Stranger Things again, season 3. So
there you go. There's a little tip for you.
There's a little tip for you. It was out there. It was posted on Instagram. So
no, I know you're not breaking rules.
Yeah.
No, listen. What you guys don't know is that in organizing this show, we've probably been organizing it for 5 or 6 months, right? And went through the Netflix gauntlet, which was very cool. Was very cool. So we know that you guys are careful about where you go have these conversations, and the fact that you considered us and thought we were worthy, thanks to you for that. I mean,
thank both of you.
No,
you guys, y'all are legends, man. Come on.
You
know this.
We're old people with a job.
We have a job?
Well,
it's good to know.
That's another discussion. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
It is a testament to Netflix that they have individuals like yourself. Amazing that you took this on and got this higher quality audio thing. I know Ozzie is a beacon and a leading light. It's a good addition to the team.
He really is. We're so lucky to have him.
Yeah, and you guys together absolutely kill it. We've run around to a few rooms and a few studios and so forth as he's enlightened me on the process and stuff. And it's fun to just sit back and watch somebody really good be really good.
Yeah.
And that happens.
I'm just a simple man trying to make his way around the universe, man.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to start using that one too.
Yep.
Ozzie Sutherland, Scott Kramer, Netflix, doing great stuff. Hope you enjoyed. Dave, take us home.
Hey, guys. If I was just starting my career or was thinking about a career in audio, I'd certainly rerun this episode a few times and get some information and check it out. Seems like there's so much opportunity, not just here, but we've got so many friends overseas, and we thank you for your viewership. But this also includes you guys. You know, like Ozzie and Scott said, there's opportunities in every country, and I would certainly take a look at it. I'm a little jealous, but take a look at it. We'll see you next week.